Super God Gene. Chapter 51. Son of Heaven's proposal was a risky one, but it was indeed their best chance to kill the sacred blood creature. The creature was now lying on the mountain top bleeding, its wings hardly moving. If they missed this opportunity, they might never be able to kill it. Finally, Qinzan agreed with Son of Heaven, but she decided to go up the mountain, leaving Son of Heaven and Yang Manly, the only two mutant beast soul arrow owners, at the foot of the mountain. Zan, no need to go up yourself. Just give orders from down here, Son of Heaven advised. There are no orders to be given. Since I have no mutant beast soul arrow, I might as well go up. Qinzan started climbing as she spoke. The crowd was divided into 7 groups, and each group was climbing toward the mountain top from a different direction. Han Sen immediately followed Qinzan. He noticed Son of Heaven's cold stare at him and knew Son of Heaven was about to stab him in the back. Probably it would be Han Sen himself instead of the sacred blood creature who got shot at first. Hence Han Sen had made up his mind to follow Qinzan everywhere, so that Son of Heaven had no chance to play dirty. Indeed, Han Sen was right. Son of Heaven had the idea of shooting Han Sen dead from the moment he proposed everyone to climb up. On the slope, Han Sen would have nowhere to hide and thus be doomed. But now Han Sen was always following Qinzan. If Son of Heaven made any move, Qinzan would save Han Sen for sure. However, Son of Heaven didn't give up just for this. Instead, he now had an even stronger desire to kill Han Sen. All he needed was a moment when Qinzan went away from Han Sen. Although the slope was steep, the groups were all equipped with a full set of climbing tools and they soon climbed halfway. The sacred blood creature was severely hurt. When it noticed the climbers, all it could do was howling at them as it was unable to go down and attack or fly away. As Qinzan and others approached the top of the mountain, the creature tried to fly away by flapping its blood-stained wings, while it immediately fell. All groups were overjoyed and started to shoot at it with arrows. Although they couldn't harm the creature, it was infuriated. Suddenly, the sacred blood creature flapped its injured wings and pounced on the closest man. The man had no place to hide on the slope and helplessly hacked his blade at the sacred blood creature. His blade cut the creature on the head but didn't even leave a trace on its scales. The man himself was bitten by the sacred blood creature and torn into 2 halves. His blood sprayed everywhere, which scared people off. Everyone started to climb down. It would be hard to go down the mountain, but luckily they had secured ropes on the slope when they were climbing up. Everyone just ended up using the ropes to slide down. Seeing the sacred blood creature being lured down and madly chasing after the climbers, Son of Heaven and Yang Manly quickly raised their bows and continuously shot their arrows at the creature. Son of Heaven shot 2 arrows and both missed. He was more interested in shooting at Han Sen than the creature. However, Han Sen was sly and kept following Qinzan, giving him no chance to make an insidious attack. Coward! Son of Heaven secretly cursed and again shot at the sacred blood creature. At this point, everyone knew that the sacred blood creature was a spent bullet. It had bled too much and could hardly fly. If it came down now, it wouldn't be able to fly back up. Despite the casualties, they were going to kill this sacred blood creature. Not able to find a chance to kill Han Sen, Son of Heaven had to take it out on the sacred blood creature. Arrow after arrow, the sacred blood creature was in more pain. And howled harshly. Flapping its bleeding wings, the creature wanted to return to the mountain top, but it was hurt too badly to fly. With its desperate flapping, it was still falling. Suddenly, it flew to the slope and gripped on a stone with its claws as its fingers cut 4 holes in the stone as if it were butter. The sacred blood creature gripped harder and started to climb up the mountain. We cannot let it climb up. Qinzan summoned her beast soul and shape-shifted into a golden lion, climbing up using the holes left by the creature. Han Sen was anxious. If Qinzan went away, he would become the target of Son of Heaven. Han Sen reached out to grab the lion's tail and was suddenly dragged up. Qinzan gave him a fierce gaze, but he pretended not having seen it and still held onto her tail. Qinzan had no time to beat Han Sen up and just chased after the creature at full speed. Seeing the sacred blood creature going out of his shooting range, Son of Heaven put away his bow and arrows and suddenly shape-shifted into a black ape more than 9 feet tall. Son of Heaven quickly ran to the slope and started climbing at a speed much faster than the other climbers. It was as if he were running on the ground. Let go! Cried Qinzan. She couldn't keep up with the sacred blood creature as Han Sen was tugging at her tail. Han Sen quickly let go of her tail. Son of Heaven was in a rush to kill the sacred blood creature so he had no time to harm Han Sen. Son of Heaven is a real asshole. He has such a strong mutant beast soul, yet he still sent us up and put us in danger. Han Sen felt jealous as he saw the ape climbing up at an incredible speed. He did have the bloody slayer, but its strengths were its galloping speed on the ground and the dexterity of its human hands. For mountains as steep as this one, the bloody slayer could never climb up with its 4 hooves. Son of Heaven soon went ahead of Chinzon the golden lion and was directly behind the sacred blood creature. The creature that was already on the mountain top clawed at Son of Heaven as it saw him. Super God Gene, Chapter 52. Han Sen found a place that was not so steep and held Doomsday in both hands while watching the fight on the mountain top. Pulling out a skyfall arrow from his quiver, he shot it at the sacred blood creature. He barely hurt the sacred blood creature with his arrows and 2 were shot at Son of Heaven who was fighting the sacred blood creature. Of course, skyfall arrows wouldn't hurt Son of Heaven either. It was so badly made that it wouldn't even pierce the skin of mutant creatures. Han Sen was just warming up. After all, he only had 1 Z steel arrow and wanted to make sure he would succeed with it. Damn it, do not shoot if you don't know how to use your bow. Put away your useless arrows, growled Son of Heaven who had been shot twice by Han Sen. Chinzon rushed to the top and started to attack the sacred blood creature. Others also climbed back to the top and started shooting at the creature. Although the sacred blood creature was dying, it was still powerful. Howling on the mountain top, it forced everyone back. Neither Son of Heaven nor Chinzon could approach it. Suddenly, Son of Heaven shape-shifted back into his own body. He had only shape-shifted for an hour, although he could have shape-shifted longer than that with his Geno points. As Han Sen was wondering what Son of Heaven was trying to do, he saw Son of Heaven summoning his red beast soul sword and slashing it at a bloody wing of the creature. Chinzon also shape-shifted back into herself, summoned her malicious butterfly dagger, and stabbed it at the creature. Several others on the mountaintop also used their own weapons to attack the sacred blood creature. The creature was injured heavily and Son of Heaven made a foot-long wound on its wing. The creature was bathed in its own blood. Chinzon took the chance to stab her dagger into the creature's wound and its blood suddenly turned black as it was poisoned by the dagger. Attack harder. It is almost dead, yelled someone. And then everyone stepped up their game. Han Sen saw clearly from where he was standing that the henchmen of Son of Heaven did have incredible skills. They moved around on the slope as though they were walking on flat ground. If they hadn't been there to distract the creature, Son of Heaven and Chinzon would not have succeeded so easily. Seeing that the sacred blood creature was almost gone, Han Sen grabbed Doomsday and stared at the creature, looking for a chance to make the shot. If he made the last attack before the creature died, he would have an opportunity to gain its beast soul. Although the chance was very slim, an opportunity was still better than nothing. Son of Heaven took the risk and climbed up himself for the last attack as well. Whoever made the last hit could keep the beast soul for him or herself. That was a default rule in the shelter. The reason was that only those who made the last attack would know if they had gained the beast soul or not. And no one would know if they were lying. Crack! Son of Heaven's sword was slashed into the neck of the creature and made a cut so deep its bones were exposed. More blood started to gush out. The creature once again suffered a fatal hit and went mad. It gathered all its strength and swept its wings across the crowd, forcing everyone to back off. Trembling, it flew up again toward a different mountain. Everyone knew from how bad it was bleeding that it was going to die very soon. Son of Heaven quickly summoned his own mutant beast soul bow and arrow, shooting at the creature in the sky. The arrow penetrated its wing. The sacred blood creature couldn't take it anymore and started to fall with its wings helplessly flapping. It was falling too fast and it was too late for others to shoot at it. Son of Heaven was overjoyed as, even if the sacred blood creature fell and died, he was still the one who attacked last and had a chance at its beast soul. Suddenly, an alloy arrow was shot from the slope and disappeared in the creature's wounded neck. Son of Heaven suddenly raged. And everyone else was shocked. In the blink of an eye, the sacred blood creature had fallen at the foot of the mountain and died. Sacred blood creature purple winged dragon killed. Sacred blood beast soul of purple winged dragon gained. Eat the flesh of purple winged dragon to gain 0 to 10 sacred blood Geno points randomly. The voice sounded in Han Sen's mind. Han Sen almost shed tears for happiness. However, he managed to fake disappointment, helplessness and frustration. Everyone on the mountaintop was looking at him, especially Son of Heaven. If he could kill with his sight, Han Sen must have died a million deaths. Although there was the default rule, Han Sen made up his mind not to admit he had gained the beast soul. Or Son of Heaven would definitely kill him. People who saw his disappointed look did not entirely buy it, but did feel better somehow. After everyone had come down from the mountain, Son of Heaven seized Han Sen's collar and asked, "Have you got the beast soul?" No, Han Sen insisted that he had gained nothing. Son of Heaven was skeptical and tried to beat Han Sen up, but Chinzan stopped him. Son of Heaven, my guy broke no rules. He said he didn't get it. And even if he did, you have no right to ask him to hand it over to you, said Chinzan, her face grim. Han Sen was in her gang. If he was beat up by Son of Heaven, she would have no authority in the future. Son of Heaven stared at Han Sen for a long time before he walked toward the dead body of the purple-winged dragon, pulled out Han Sen's arrow, and snapped it into two halves. Super God Gene, Chapter 53. After wrapping up the dead body of the purple-winged dragon, everyone returned to Steel Armor Sanctuary and Chinzan called Han Sen into her office. Did you get the beast soul? Chinzan stared at Han Sen. Station Master, I really did not get the beast soul. Had I known this I would never have shot the arrow, said Han Sen wryly. Chinzan didn't believe him. Stop acting. If you have gained the beast soul, I will not take advantage you either. If you want to sell it, I'm willing to pay. I can even pay you up front. Station Master, I'd be a fool if I don't want to earn the money. I really did not get the beast soul. If I could show you I would. Han Sen looked depressed. Chinzan felt Han Sen's emotions were authentic. She frowned and said to him, forget about it then. Do not go anywhere alone and stay in Bullseye these days. Son of Heaven might try to kill you. I will behave. Han Sen nodded. Back to Bullseye, Su Xiaoqiao put his arm around Han Sen's neck and asked, Sen, I heard that you made the last attack. Did you get the beast soul? I wish, but unfortunately I don't even own a primitive beast soul, let alone a sacred blood one, Han Sen shrugged and said. Right, beast souls are very hard to come by. We can't all be as lucky as Dollar, Su Xiaoqiao sighed and said. He did not have too much doubt. After all, the probability of gaining a beast soul was too low. Recently you must be careful not to leave the shelter. Although you did not get the beast soul, Son of Heaven wouldn't let you off the hook easily, said Su Xiaoqiao. I know. Han Sen patted Su Xiaoqiao on the shoulder, thinking, he seems a nice guy. Back in his room, Han Sen could not help but smiled and started to review his new beast soul. Type of sacred blood purple-winged dragon's beast soul, flying. The introduction was brief, but reminded Han Sen of so much he had heard about this type of beast soul. A flying beast soul meant the beast soul could turn into wings that could give its owner the ability to fly like a bird. Flying across the sky without the need for tools such as aircrafts was certainly a dream coming true. The most important part was that with the ability to fly, one's survival would become so much easier in God's sanctuary. A flying beast soul also allowed one to go where ordinary people couldn't reach. Flying beast souls were super expensive, even more so than the shape-shifting beast soul of the same level. Also, flying beast souls were so rare in God's sanctuary that you might not even be able to buy one even if you had the money. Amazing. A sacred blood flying beast soul. I wonder how many of these exist in the entire first God's sanctuary. Han Sen was so excited that he almost jumped up. Primitive flying beast souls had a low speed and didn't allow the users to go very high. It could only bring people 10 feet above the ground. Mutant flying beast souls were better but still slow and clumsy. Sacred blood flying beast souls were much better than the others. But Han Sen had never seen even mutant flying beast souls in Steel Armor Sanctuary. Of course, this had something to do with the fact that there were less flying creatures near Steel Armor Shelter. The room was too small for Han Sen to summon the wings. When he calmed down from excitement, his eye fell on the copper-toothed beast that had turned completely purple and shiny as if it had been polished. Sacred blood. The copper-toothed beast has evolved into a sacred blood creature. Han Sen was filled with unspeakable joy, staring at the beast. For 3 months, Han Sen had been anxious about the result, but now he knew it for sure. Every 3 months, he could have a creature evolved into a sacred blood creature. If the words got out, everyone would go crazy. Like today, it was so hard for such a huge group of people to hunt a purple-winged dragon. And after it was killed, every member in the group would share its meat. Son of Heaven's gang would have a bigger share, and Chinzan's gang would have the rest. After everyone got their own part, how many geno points can a small part of the entire body offer? Hunting that cost a lot of resources and effort like this one would happen at most once per month, and the success rate would be at most 50%. Yet Han Sen could have the meat of an entire sacred blood creature all to himself every 3 months. Son of Heaven and Chinzan were both several years older than Han Sen, but they still hadn't evolved to enter Second God's Sanctuary, which meant maxing out on sacred geno points took a lot of time and effort. Behind Son of Heaven was Starry Group, and behind Chinzan was the military. Even they were not able to max out on sacred Geno points within 10 years. It might take them 15 years or even longer if they had bad luck. Now with the black crystal, Han Sen only needed at most 5 years to evolve with max sacred Geno points. Han Sen's first reaction was not to kill the copper-toothed beast and eat its meat, but to go to the square to buy a living primitive creature. He did not want to waste any time before he started to feed the next sacred blood creature. Also, he didn't dare to go out hunting, fearing Son of Heaven's revenge. Taking the primitive creature he had brought back to his room, Han Sen didn't hesitate before he killed the sacred blood copper-toothed beast. It was far less strong than a wild sacred blood creature and was easily slaughtered. Sacred blood copper-toothed beast killed. No beast soul gained. Eat its meat to gain 1 to 10 sacred Geno points randomly. Although there was no beast soul gained, Han Sen was still over the moon. He quickly set up a pot and was ready to make a stew. Super God Gene, Chapter 54, Meat of Copper-Toothed Beast Eaten. 1 sacred Geno point gained. Meat of copper-toothed beast eaten. 1 sacred Geno point gained. Quote. 2 days later, Han Sen finished a big pot of copper-toothed beast meat and even sucked the bones clean. He threw the bones into the fire so that there was nothing left. A total of 7 sacred Geno points was added to his former 18 points. Now Han Sen had 25 sacred Geno points and his fitness had been further improved. He felt as though he had endless strength. Looking at the primitive shrieky beast he kept in the cage now, Han Sen couldn't help but smacked his lips. Shrieky beasts were relatively small and had no hair, so he could just throw it in the pot entirely when it finished evolving. That was why Han Sen had chosen a shrieky beast to evolve. Yesterday Qin Zan had divided the meat of the purple-winged dragon among her gang. All she had was a smaller half of the body, so all each person would get was just a slice, about 1/1000th of the body, which wouldn't be of much use at all. Hence, like most people, Han Sen chose to get $200,000 as the reward instead of the slice of meat. Han Sen was still short of cash. It cost money for his family to live better and he also needed money to buy some necessities. When checking his bank account, he found that he still only had less than $300,000. 300,000, a Z steel arrow would cost that much. Han Sen put on a wry smile. He had collected the parts after his Z steel arrow was broken by Son of Heaven and wanted to see if he could pay the seller to repair it. I have to get myself a beast soul arrow. Z steel arrows were expensive and not as convenient. If I had a beast soul arrow, I wouldn't have to buy new arrows or pick up the arrow after I made the shot, though Han Sen, wondering where to find a beast soul arrow. He wasn't interested in primitive beast soul arrows, which were barely better than his Z steel arrow but much more expensive. What Han Sen wanted was a mutant beast soul arrow like the ones used by Son of Heaven and Yang Manly. After some thinking, Han Sen was ready to ask Yang Manly from which creature she had gained her mutant beast soul arrow. Maybe he could go hunting it and try his luck as well. Yang Manly seems to dislike me. I'm afraid she will not tell me. Forget it, I haven't been back home for days. I'll go back and search on the Skynet for information about where the arrow beast soul are generally found near here. Han Sen teleported out of God's sanctuary. When he returned home, his mother was still in second God's sanctuary and Han Yan was at school. After taking a bath, he started searching the Skynet. There were many former members of Steel Armor Sanctuary that had written about their experience. Although most was useless to Han Sen, he did manage to find one useful article. When Han Sen was going to read carefully, he suddenly heard the doorbell. Looking through the monitor, he found standing at the door were Shui Shi and her brother Fang Jingqi. Why is he here? Han Sen knew Fang Jingqi didn't like him and they also had some conflicts before, so he did not expect to see Fang Jingqi here. Opening the door, Han Sen said with a smile, "Shi, you have not come to my house for many years." Shui Shi looked a bit uneasy and whispered, "If this isn't a good time, we will just leave." Although she tried to pull Fang Jingqi away, Fang Jingqi stood still and smiled at Han Sen. "It's always a good time for friends, isn't it?" Indeed, Han Sen already understood that Fang Jingqi was looking for trouble. Letting Fang Jingqi and Shui Shi in, Han Sen handed them 2 bottles of water. "Sorry. There is only water." "Doesn't matter." Fang Jingqi did not touch the water and asked, "Sen, which shelter are you in?" "Steel Armor Shelter," replied Han Sen. "Sen, you are also in Steel Armor Shelter. How come Han Hao never mentioned it?" Shui Shi was slightly startled. Han Sen said indifferently, "Maybe we have never run into each other." Shui Shi clearly didn't buy it, but she didn't continue to ask. Fang Jingqi said, "It so happens that a classmate of mine is also there." His name is Fist Guy. Have you heard of him? One of the 3 major leaders. It'd be hard not to hear about him, said Han Sen. Awesome. Fang Jingqi smiled at Han Sen. Last time you treated me with a ritual, so today I have a gift for you. Not sure if you are interested. I don't like gifts. Your visit has already made me a happy man. Looking at Shui's eyes upset face, Han Sen shook his head and said. He didn't want to cause any trouble and put her in a difficult place. A mutant beast soul, are you still not interested? Asked Fang Jingqi slowly. A mutant beast soul. Han Sen looked at him, slightly surprised. He immediately understood why Fang Jingqi had mentioned Fist Guy. Fang Jingqi looked at Han Sen with faint smile. Let's go to the combat pit and have a fight. Regardless of the outcome, I will let Fist Guy give you a mutant beast soul. Sen, what do you think about this gift? If it was up to Han Sen, he would definitely accept it. However, he knew Shui wouldn't want him to fight her brother, so he just said, I can't accept the mutant beast soul. If you haven't eaten, I'll cook us dinner. Fang Jingqi thought Han Sen did not believe him, so he picked up the comlink and dialed a number. Suddenly the holographic image of a hunk popped up. The hunk smiled at Fang Jingqi and said, Jingqi, it's been so long since we saw each other. Quote, Fist Guy, I need your help. I have a friend in steel armor shelter and want you to take care of him. Would you give him a mutant beast soul? Asked Fang Jingqi with a smile. If others asked me for this, I would tell them to F***hash K off. Since it's you asking, just send your friend to me in the shelter. And remember you owe me one, replied Fist Guy. After hanging up, Fang Jingqi looked at Han Sen and asked, now, are you willing to accept my gift? Super God Gene, Chapter 55. Han Sen knew Fang Jingqi had misunderstood him. He smiled back at Fang Jingqi, let's not to go to the combat pit. Would you play a small game with me here at home? Shui shot Han Sen a look of disapproval, but this time Han Sen did not respond to her. Han Sen knew a guy like Fang Jingqi would not give up unless he was defeated. What game? Frowned Fang Jingqi. Have you ever played Red Hands? Han Sen asked with a faint smile. Fang Jingqi turned down the corners of his mouth, of course, but that's such an easy game. Red Hands was a game played between 2 players. One player, the slappy, placed their hands palm down, hovering above the other players, the slapper, hands. The slapper hovered their hands below the slappy's, palms up. The 2 players' hands should be touching each other. The slapper was on offense, and attempted to bring his hands over to slap the backsides of his opponent's hands. This must be done with sufficient speed, because the slappy's goal was to pull their hands away, and out of the area where the hands overlap, to avoid the slap. If the slapper missed the hands of the slappy during the slap, then the roles must switch. If our hands touch, it would be easy. How about we play with our hands not touching? Han Sen was still smiling. No problem, laughed Fang Jingqi. Red Hands mainly tested one's reflexes and Fang Jingqi was confident that his reflexes were superior to Han Sen's. Also, Fang Jingqi was glad that the rule of this game was that as long as the slapper was able to hit the slappy, their roles would never change. Fang Jingqi wanted to take advantage of this rule and slap Han Sen so hard on the hands that he couldn't raise his arm. So, as long as the slapper's hand moved, it would be counted as a slap and he could not take it back. Han Sen first set the rules down. Okay, I will let you slap first. Fang Jingqi was very confident and reached out his arms. Han Sen did not reach his arms out but smiled at Fang Jingqi. Jingqi, you said there would be a mutant beast soul. Fang Jingqi was not stupid. Although he did not care about a mutant beast soul, he didn't want Han Sen to take advantage of him either. He said, a mutant beast soul is for a fight in the combat pit. Since we are now playing Red Hands, let's consider it a prize. You could win it if you could slap me. Jingqi, this is not fun. And I don't want to take advantage of you either. Han Sen pondered and said, forget about the beast soul. Let's change the prize to $10,000. Every time you are able to slap me, I will pay you $10,000 and vice versa. What do you think? The mutant beast soul pet meowth that Han Sen got from Shinzan was useless and ate a lot. Han Sen had thus learned a lesson and asked for cash as he didn't know what beast soul it would be. Fair and square, I'm beginning to like you. But 10,000 is too little. How about 100,000? Fang Jingqi looked at Han Sen. Han Sen shook his head, we are all friends. Losing too much might hurt our relationship. Shui quickly said, right. It's just a game. No need to bet too much money. 10,000 is already too much. Since you are afraid to lose, then we will stick with 10,000, Fang Jingqi shrugged. Han Sen did not say anything, but kept smiling at Fang Jingqi. Now in his eyes, Fang Jingqi was not a person, but a walking ATM. Fang Jingqi came to him just when he was worried about money. All he needed to do was accept. If the opponent wasn't too much stronger than him, Han Sen believed that he could win most people at playing red hands. His understanding of his opponents and timing were among the very best. Before he got the black crystal, that was how he made his living. Fang Jingqi, who thought the game was only about reflexes, wouldn't be his match at all. I'll let you be the slapper first. Fang Jingqi again reached out his hands. He didn't think Han Sen stood a chance. Judging from Han Sen's age, he was in God's sanctuary less than 1 year, so he couldn't have gained many Geno points. In addition, the situation of his family wouldn't allow him to buy the meat of advanced creatures either. Fang Jingqi himself had already been in God's sanctuary for several years and had gained many Geno points. So, his fitness and reflexes must be far better than Han Sen, and Han Sen wasn't likely to be able to hit him. Alright, Han Sen reached his hands under Fang Jingqi's hands and kept a little distance from them. Han Sen kept his hands still and then asked, "Can I start?" "Yi." Han Sen's hand slapped on the back of Fang Jingqi's hands before Fang Jingqi could finish his reply. 10,000, Han Sen said. "Shi, write it down." "Write it down." Fang Jingqi gritted his teeth and said to Shui Shi. Shui Shi quickly opened the holographic noteboard on her comlink and drew a line. Again, Fang Jingqi reached his hands out. "Can I start?" Han Sen asked again. Fang Jingqi just nodded, staring at Han Sen's hands wholeheartedly without blinking. With the lesson learned, Fang Jingqi swore he would not be tricked by Han Sen again. Han Sen didn't rush this time and turned to speak to Shui Shi. "Shi, do you want to hear a funny story?" Now, Shui Shi was surprised. Han Sen nodded and started. A lovely puppy was traveling in the desert. It had brought enough water and food, but still died after 2 days. Can you guess why it was? Quote, "Was there a sandstorm?" No, the weather was fine. Because it was lost. There was plenty of water and food, so it would not die even if it got lost, Han Sen said. I cannot guess. Why did it die? Shui Shi didn't want to guess anymore because she was nervous about the result of red hands. Because that cute puppy could not find a utility pole in the desert, so its bladder exploded, laughed Han Sen. Shui Shi blushed. "Sen, that's so corny. Vulgar." Fang Jingqi said with his face grim, and suddenly felt a pain on the back of his hands. Snap. Crystal Ice web novel. Please like and subscribe for more updated novel.